the media sensationalized the book. And then all of a sudden people are talking about tunnels. Now, does that mean near-death experiencers are lying? I don't think so. What I've seen is that you don't have words in the English language to explain what this experience is. Well, we just don't have words. And especially for any kind of darkness or moving through darkness. So all of a sudden now they have a word, and that word is called tunnel. I've been at several meetings of experiencers where I have seen and witnessed near-death experiencers do that, where they're struggling to describe their experience. And then someone in the room says, "Oh, you went through a tunnel." So the person sort of thinks about it and grapples with it and says, "Oh, well, okay, it probably was a tunnel." You know, they're very much influenced by what they heard from people around them. They're very much influenced by the book, Life After Life. They're very much influenced by the media. So now, all of a sudden, they have a word. And, you know, what's happened since then is especially metaphysical types, but all kinds of people everywhere have been using this, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel, the idea of the tunnel, as an explanation for wormholes and physics and, you know, all kinds of stuff when it doesn't apply, never did apply. In my research base, less than 1/3 of the people reported a tunnel.
Wow.
And great lots of them don't report tunnels at all. And if you're getting outside the United States, if you're getting outside of Canada, Australia, and some of the countries in Europe, then people don't use tunnels at all. You never hear the word tunnel or even anything that might be a tunnel.
Don't you think then the reference to the word tunnel became almost like a meme to describe the mysterious part, whatever couldn't be explained?
Well, certainly it's become something like that in mass consciousness. It's become like an archetype because we don't know what else to call it, so we're calling it a tunnel, when in fact there was never any tunnel there at all. So, you know, so these kinds of interesting things began to occur. I've never had the privilege of speaking like this before. So this, for me, is a real treat. I've never been able to talk about the early days.
Why?
Nobody focuses on it. Nobody asks about it, so it never happens. So you're the first one.
That's because it's rainmaking time.
Yeah, it really is. It's really going back. Now, let me build a word picture here. Raymond Moody is being inundated by all kinds of people, all kinds of media, all kinds of opportunities to talk. He was absolutely flooded. He couldn't handle it all. And it really bothered him that he was getting a lot of flaky stuff and what he called New Age stuff, you know, connections to that. And he said, no, this has to be a science. And so his desire was to start a scientific field of study. He wanted a research study field. So he, after the book had been out for a few years, he put out to the various physicians, medical physicians, and scientists who might be interested, would you like to meet with me? And let's talk about how we can establish a scientific field of study about the near-death experience. And at that time, Raymond Moody had purchased
Kubler-Ross?
Yeah, he had purchased Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's farm over, it was between the state of Virginia and West Virginia. He was there. He had the farm. And so he invited all these people over to the farm. And when they came to the farm, one of them came to see me. Now, let me paint another picture. While all of this is going on, and Raymond Moody, in truly a wonderful vision, wanted to establish a legitimate professional field of study. One of those people that went to that meeting was Kenneth Ring. Kenneth Ring was the first scientific researcher of near-death experiences. Wrote several books. And they were the leaders in the field. He showed everybody else how to do it. He was the one. But when he was teaching then at the University of Connecticut, and he'd gone into this bookstore in Hartford, Connecticut, and this book fell at his feet, and it was called "I Died 3 Times in 1977" by P.M.H. Atwater, which is me.
Yours truly.
I had self-published this little book, and it was a little book, and all it consists of is the four articles that I wrote for Many Smokes magazine, which was published then by the Bear Tribe, which was directed by Sun Bear. Wobbin, Sun Bear's apprentice, her mother had died, and she was dealing with the death of her mother. She knew I had died. So she asked me to write these articles for Many Smokes magazine. And I did, and I kept them. And I took those 4 little articles, and I put them in this little book called "I Died 3 Times in 1977. And I only printed 50 copies. That's all that were ever printed. How a copy of that book got to Hartford, Connecticut, I have no idea. But it did. And, of course, it fell at the feet of Ken Ring. Ken Ring read that book. And he tried to find me by telephone. And he kept calling and calling and calling until finally he ran across Ricky Bradshaw, who was a near-death experiencer. And I had a session with Ricky. So Ricky knew about me. And so Ricky told, and Ricky knew Ken Ring. Ricky had one of the most unusual experiences and verified that is in the annals of experiences. So Ricky was well known, and he certainly knew Ken Ring. And so he told Ken Ring where I was and how to find me. So Ken Ring called, says he's coming down for this big meeting. He'd like to stay with me. I was married then, or just got married to my husband, Terry Atwater, and we were living then in Harrisonburg, Virginia. So he came over. He stayed overnight. Well, no, he came over after the meeting was over. After the meeting was over, then he spent time with me. And he said, and he was just aghast. He said, "My word, I had no idea anyone like you existed, because I had gone out not knowing a thing about Raymond Moody. Never heard of the guy. Never read Life After Life. Didn't even know about the book. I had gone out and doing my own independent research because I was told to. I was told to do this in my 3rd near-death experience. So I was going out doing my own work. I'd been doing it for over 3 years. And I didn't know that anybody else was doing it. I never heard of this stuff. And Ken, when he found out I was doing what I was doing, we talked almost all night. And when he found out what I was doing, what I was finding, what my findings were, he just shook his head and he said, "My God," he said, "you're ahead of everybody else. You know more than any of the rest of us do." He said, "You've got to come up to Hartford, and you've got to meet your peer group. And you've got to investigate what we're doing and compare what we're doing with what you're doing." And that's exactly what I did. But if you wanted to do, and that's how I entered the field. But when I say that's how I entered the field, I want to be fair here to everyone concerned. Because when I entered the field.